So I begin now. I begin with a prayer. Om Jananim Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Pada Padme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur. So we are meeting after a long time. I had been traveling a lot, first to South America, then I went to USA, after, that is in May. So we missed April and May classes. Then July we had one class, and again in August I had a retreat. In fact, 3, 4 programs in Kansas City, a very good retreat in Washington D.C., Greater Washington D.C. Of all the retreats that I have conducted, I conducted one in Chicago as well. But this retreat was exceptionally uh, good in the sense all the people who participated, most of them, of course, were initiated. But the type of questions they asked, you can see all the sessions, 4 sessions, 4 talks, plus 2 question-answer sessions. They are on our YouTube channel. And if you see the content and if you see the questions, type of questions that were asked, shows how serious they are, especially the initiated disciples or devotees who have taken initiation. Some of them have taken 30 years ago. There are quite a few senior citizens, but the amount of enthusiasm and the amount of interest they showed in different aspects of upasana for spiritual progress, that was the theme, which is very closely related to our Raj Yoga, because Raj Yoga is a part of the upasana or sadhana that we prescribe to all the adherents or followers of the authentic Ramakrishna Vivekananda tradition. You see, every order or every uh, system of spiritual practice has to be associated with a very authentic spiritual tradition. Only then it proves to be useful in the spiritual aspirant's life. Otherwise, to know many things, to have wonderful academic talks, universities are there. There are a lot of professors who don't have to practice what they teach, because for them, teaching yoga is also academic. Teaching any system of philosophy also is academic. There are a lot of things to know, and curiosity is very good. But Swami Vivekananda has warned us. In the beginning, we discussed it. I'll just recapitulate. He said, time is very short, books are infinite in number. So be careful which books you read and which books actually should be taken seriously. So, one of the hints that Swami Vivekananda gives is read only those books written by realized souls. For example, we don't have to question the authenticity of Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, I mean the original, and also books like Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna in our tradition, and also Vivekananda, because they are books written based on their personal realizations. So we will not be wasting our time. But if we are reading other books by other authors, we have to maybe take it with a pinch of salt, because we really do not know whether they are authentic or not. But you cannot question the authenticity of Bhagwan Sri Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita, the Patanjali's yoga, which has been a system which has been followed for so many centuries, and it has benefited a lot. How much of it we understand, that is a different question. So interpreters will be many, but even amongst them, amongst the interpreters, if somebody has practiced Raj Yoga in his life, as we definitely know Swami Vivekananda was one of them, and his book is very authentic. So these books have special value. There may be thousands of books on Patanjali's yoga, but here, when Swami Vivekananda comments on something which is an authentic spiritual tradition of Raj Yoga or Patanjali's yoga, then it gets there is an additional value to the sutras, to understand the sutras and more importantly apply it in our life. So in these retreats, when we spoke of upasana, Raj Yoga was only a part of it. There are other aspects of sadhana or upasana which are integrated into our Ramakrishna sadhana or upasana, and there is a authentic tradition which is handed over from one guru to the other. So it is known as Guru Parampara. In fact, Shankaracharya says there cannot be knowledge transmission without a Guru Parampara. You can't get knowledge from books and YouTube. You may get information, but you can't get real, authentic transmission of knowledge is possible only through a Guru Parampara. So that is the tradition which Patanjali maintains. That is why the first sutra which we are beginning today, we discussed over the last 8 sessions. If you see, watch it on YouTube, we have discussed enough in great detail the elaborate introduction, which is almost one-fourth the size of the book, of Swami Vivekananda on Raj Yoga, because he wanted to clear many doubts or clear many misunderstandings that were associated with the word yoga. So, Patanjali's definition of yoga, before explaining what it is, he emphasizes certain things which we will now consider. The first sutra, which Patanjali has composed, or I mean, it is based on his knowledge of the yoga tradition which preceded him. There were thousands of years of authentic Sankhya yoga tradition which he codified in the sutras. So he is not the founder. He is just the codifier of these sutras which existed even before Patanjali. So that is why he uses the word Atha Yoganushasanam. He says, now we shall begin. Atha means now. Yoga is Yoga Anushasanam. Anushasanam means I will explain the meaning and purpose and the method of yoga. Anushasan means many things. It means an intellectual understanding. It also means manana, thinking, deliberating, and also it means practicing the sutras, the content of the sutras after having understood it, practicing it in our own life. So that is why it is known as Anushasan. Anushasan means discipline. It is like Upasana. Upasana, the authentic spiritual tradition started by Patanjali and his system, which was, of course, preceded him. And there were many practitioners of yoga. He just codified it so that a systematic study can be made. So he says now yoga is being explained, or yoga, the methods of yoga will be explained. What is the meaning of now? Why Atha? He could have just said Yoga Anushasanam. This is yoga is being explained by me. Atha word has a meaning in all the sutras. Even Brahma Sutras, the word starts with Atha. Atha means now. Now means now that you are qualified, you are a qualified aspirant. So there are some basic qualifications without which you will not come to yoga. Yoga, the very purpose of yoga is to transform ourselves. And we have to be keen to do that. We are not coming to learn yoga as an intellectual pursuit, like we study physics, chemistry, mathematics. They may be intellectual pursuits. They may have nothing to do with our life. A physics professor, a mathematics professor, he can lead any type of life he likes. Nobody will question him. As long as he teaches physics properly, nobody goes into his personal life. He can be of any character. The main purpose of his teaching as a professor in a college is that he knows his subject and he is teaching. So beyond that, you don't have to think. Whereas in yoga, it is not so. When he uses the word Atha, Yoganushasanam means now that the teacher and the taught are ready, they have some basic requirements fulfilled. basic qualifications. Now it will be taught to you so that you can practice it and transform your life. That is the difference between ordinary secular subjects and an ordinary professor or an ordinary teacher and a teacher like Patanjali who says, I have practiced these things in my own life. I am not saying that this is just some kind of codified knowledge. Swami Vivekananda also doesn't say that. He meditated for hours and hours together. When he understood the true meaning, then he expressed it through this commentary that he wrote. It is in English. It's the greatest. He says, before I die, I should leave something behind for the modern people, the Western people. So that's why he wrote this book. He dictated and somebody took down the notes. So that is why it is a very authentic book. He said, it will be so sad if I don't leave behind an authentic text on yoga because there's so many misunderstandings, even during his time. Yoga was very new to the Western world. In fact, he introduced it, you may say. But before him, there were quite a few yoga practitioners. In the name of yoga, they were misleading the Western people. Just as Tantras, the follower of Tantras also have been misleading people who don't belong to an authentic tradition. So Patanjali decided to codify it so that future generations will benefit from it. And Swami Vivekananda was one who thought the sutras are too terse to understand. They're all one-liners, one-line sutras. Atha Yoganushasanam. Now what will you understand unless you explain? So Swami Vivekananda tries to explain. He says, Atha means now yoga is being explained. Now that you are serious about knowing yoga and using yoga as something that will transform you spiritually, I am now teaching it to you. I will not teach it to anyone who just has curiosity. That is why this Atha word is very important. Atha means based on your capacity or based on your eagerness or yearning, and you are the fit person to learn about yoga. Now, second sutra, which is the main sutra of the whole purpose and meaning of yoga. What is yoga? It's the definition is given now in the second sutra. Yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So it's a very small sutra, and everybody will say, "Oh, let us go to the next sutra." But Swamiji says no. He says a good deal of explanation is necessary. It is not simply enough to understand the meaning. The literal meaning is yoga, that is yoga, is what is yoga? Chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta means our mind stuff. First, we have to know what is our mind stuff. What are the constituents of our mind? Then vritti, we have to understand what vritti is. Vritti means waves. Swamiji gives an example. There is a pool of water. You throw a stone and then ripples are formed. They are known as waves. In fact, I have told this before. There is in our magazine we published a series of articles, three articles in three parts on the science of vibration, and it deals with physical by Swami Ashokananda. So he wrote the role vibrations play in our life. Now I am speaking, it is vibration. Now we are listening, that is also vibration. Now some instrument is helping us, some technological gadget is helping us, that is also vibration. The mobile waves, the waves that the mobile tower transmits, that is also vibrations. You see how much vibrations play a role in our life. Then we come to the subtle vibrations, which we discussed in the chapter on prana. That has to be understood properly. Prana means nothing but vibrations. When you do pranayama, it is vibrations that are caused by your breathing. If you breathe regularly, in a very regular fashion, in a proper way, then it is known as pranayama, that is breath. But pranayama is not just breath control. It is inducing better and harmonious vibrations to take care of our body and also the mind. So pranayama benefits, it regulates our mind also, the subtle prana. There are many levels of prana. So anyway, we'll not go into that discussion. If you are interested, you can read. It is online. You can download those three issues and read it. It is known as vibrations. It is on vibrations, the importance of vibrations in our life, by Swami Ashokananda, who was the head of our founder, you can say, or one of the earlier presidents of our Ram Vedanta Center in San Francisco. So he was the one after Trigunatitanji who developed that center, and that's the first Hindu temple in the West. So Ashokananji has written a very nice article which we have published in three parts, The Power of Vibrations. So now vritti means these vibrations. So our life, our chitta or our mind, at no stage is it without vibration. And that is the problem. When you throw a stone, you cannot see the bottom of the lake or the pool. If it is a small pool, even a small stone will disturb. If it is a big lake, then a small stone may not cause enough ripples to cover the whole lake. But the smaller the lake or the smaller the pond, even a medium-sized stone, otherwise in a big lake you may have to throw a big boulder to cause waves. So our minds are also like that, different minds. Some minds are agitated at the least provocation. Somebody says a few words and our minds get agitated. So, so, so here the meaning is the vaster our mind, many of the stones may fall, nothing happens to the ocean. So it is the chitta, the nature of our chitta. Chitta means mind stuff. They vary from person to person. When you say my chitta, chitta means mind stuff. It is not just, it is made of memories, it is made of your tendencies, your samskaras, your capacities, your willpower. Everything is mind stuff. So that chitta gives vrittis. It may give vrittis which may be of anger, angry vrittis, it may give happy vrittis, it may give depressive vrittis. So it's always giving us vritti. And these vrittis will decide our state of mind. It will decide our state of mind and it will decide who we are, at least temporarily. So, this with chitta vritti, somehow yoga means to chitta vritti nirodha. Nirodha means to stop. Now, why should we stop? What is the problem if the vrittis are constantly rising? We can keep throwing stones. Throw as many stones you throw, there so much of turbulence will be there on the lake, on the surface of the lake. The reason is we cannot see the bottom clearly if the vrittis are always being generated. So if a lake is somebody is throwing stones every minute, you cannot even see what is at the bottom. You cannot know its true nature. You just see the waves, you don't see the bottom. To see the bottom, the whole pool has to be quiet, very quiet. Then it becomes transparent, you can see what is there at the bottom. So to know the contents of the mind, you have to first make it steady. What is our real nature, which is hidden by our mind, covered by our mind. So if you go on throwing stones, or if you go on inducing the mind to produce waves, good waves, bad waves, angry waves, all the fear, waves of depression, then we don't understand who we really are. All our peace is lost. So yoga enables you, that is the second sutra. This yoga enables the mind stuff, chitta, from taking various forms. Now, Swamiji says a good deal of explanation is necessary what this chitta is and what the vrittis are. So he says, I have eyes. He gives a beautiful example. I have two eyes. Do the eyes see? We never ask this question. Who is seeing? Do the eyes, many blind people also have eyes, but why can't they see? They have eyes. Maybe if you look at them, they look like us. Their eyes also look like us. So, what is that which connects the eyes, which are like a camera? The images that are seen by the eyes, it has to be seen by the brain center. Somewhere in the brain, whatever we see is processed and we see a thing. Then we make judgments upon it. So Swamiji says, do the eyes see? No, it is the brain center in the head or the brain that sees. Eyes will be still there, retina will be there, all the pictures of the objects will fall on them, and yet, if the brain does not process it, the eyes will not see. For example, if you have seen somebody in coma, his eyes will be open. He'll be gazing at the sky, or maybe he may be gazing somewhere, and you think he's seeing. But because somehow the connection between the eyes and the brain center is lost, though his eyes are seeing, he is not seeing. So the eyes, this is how Swamiji says, eyes are only a secondary instrument, they are not the organ of vision. So this is clear. The organ of vision is the nerve center of the brain, which gives upon which the images fall there, and then the mind processes it. That nerve center is important. So that is known as indriya. So organ of vision. So that is why we call indriyas, eyes are indriyas. It's not, when you say eyes are indriyas, it is not the eye, the physical eye, but it is the nerve connection which connects it to the mind or brain. So, and now the light is there, the picture is there, but one thing is necessary. It is falling on the retina, but the mind has to be attached to that. If the mind is not attached to the organ, external as well as internal, nerves also may be there. But say you are sleeping and your eyes are open. Somebody may be sleeping with eyes open. Many sleep with eyes closed, but if somebody is sleeping with eyes open, the light is falling, images are falling on the retina, it is even transmitted to the brain, but somehow the mind is not attached. So the third thing that happens is mind should be attached, so the joint. So eye is the external instrument. We also need the brain center, that is the brain, which is not the mind, of course. It is the nervous current goes to the brain, and then there is a mind which sees. So, three things are necessary for such a simple thing as sight. Same thing with sound. You hear a sound, but if you don't notice it, if you are not mindful of it, that is why they say people may be talking so many things, but if your mind is somewhere else, you may be hearing the sound, but you will say, what did you say? I was absent minded, you say. You say, I was absent minded because I heard the sound, but I did not register it. My mind was not attached. So, the third, first there is the instrument, then there is the organ, that is the nerves which take it to the brain. And third, the mind is attached to these two. These two, three things, when they combine, you have a vritti. You have what is known as vritti. The mind then further takes this impression and presents it to the buddhi. So in Indian psychology, there is another thing. You may see, you may see something and the mind also sees it, the mind also registers it, but it is the buddhi who decides what to do with this vision. If there is a tiger, the mind will, buddhi will tell you to run away. Or if you see a dog, you try to avoid it. Maybe you think it will bite you. If your buddhi is not there, just your mind is active, you will see that dog coming towards you and it may even bite you. You may not, based on your past memory or past experience, if you don't use your buddhi, which is a higher faculty of the mind. So buddhi, manas, mind means manas, indriyas, that is eyes, ears, and five indriyas we have got, and plus the object outside. All these things are what make us to act. So buddhi reacts. Buddhi is the react. It is something which tells you how to react. Mind will just react. It will just tell you how to instinctively react. But if you want to react in a very well informed way, then you have to use your buddhi. Along with this reaction flashes the idea of egoism. So now you will ask, because without ego you will not react. You will react, but you will react in different ways depending on your ahankara or ego. For example, if a person is very egoistic, somebody says something, he will just react so much that he will just make the other person miserable. Maybe he has casually uttered a few words, but this person is full of ego. He said, "Did you say this to me?" He said, "No, no, I was just joking." But this person will not leave him in peace. He will go and quarrel with him because his ego will decide now, not the buddhi. Buddhi tells him, don't react. After all, he has said a few words. But then the ego, the idea of egoism is present. The ego decides or forces the buddhi, ignores the buddhi, and tells the mind no, or tells the mouth, you go and shout at him because he said something, and you become terribly angry without any reason, because the more the ego, the more you react. If a person doesn't react or withholds reaction, that means he is not egoistic. His ego is not dictating him how to react. He uses his buddhi and says, this person is ignorant, let him say whatever, that is not going to change me or change anything. Let him say. Words have no value. So, this informed wisdom or faculty of the buddhi decides whether you react, how much you react. That depends to a large extent on what Swamiji says here in the ego. So, this mixture of action and reaction that is going on is the cause of all our problems. Every day when we open our eyes or whether we close our eyes, this action, reaction, proper reaction, if the buddhi is good, reactions will be good, and throughout the day will be peaceful. If we have our buddhi is not under our control, then our mind will go on reacting to every little incident or object that we see, we hear, we the smell. There are so many organs continuously giving us information, and the brain just transmits it, and then the mind reacts. So mind causes waves. Now these waves, if they are not controlled, they will be very reactive in nature. They'll cause vibrations. There'll be coral, and the whole atmosphere is disturbed. So, what we do as a reaction, how much of ego and how much of buddhi is under our control, how much the buddhi is able to control our reaction, on that depends our happiness and our misery. You know the famous incident of Buddha. His disciple Ananda and Buddha used to go and beg for food because uh, the monks are supposed to beg, they are not supposed to cook. So they used to go to many houses. That was a normal practice. And Buddha used to be, there were many people of different nature. Some people used to criticize, some used to scold, some used to tell him, you are a fit man, you are a young man, why do you keep begging? Why are you dependent on society? So many, without understanding the monastic tradition. Men used to scold. Ananda used to get angry, his disciple, because they were angry because their guru was being insulted. So many times they would react and Buddha would stop them. Then they asked, why don't you react? Then Buddha gave a nice answer. Buddha means one whose buddhi is fully developed. The word Buddha itself has come, buddhi, one whose awareness, whose uh, wisdom has been fully developed. Buddhi. That faculty tells you not to react and waste your energy unnecessarily. So Buddha told him, if your ego is not attached, now when Swamiji says the whole thing is presented to the ego and it is the ego that reacts. Now, how not to react? Buddha gives an example. He says he has a kamandalu, he has a water pot, and everybody knows it is Buddha's water pot. Everybody has his own water pot. So he tells Ananda, whose water pot is this? And he just holds it in front of his face. He says, it is yours, master. Then he says, okay. Then after a few steps, he says, oh Ananda, can you hold this water pot for me? So Ananda obliges and he holds that water pot for Buddha. Then again, Buddha, after a few steps, after going a few steps, he asks this question, whose water pot is that? So Ananda says, it is yours, because he's just carrying it. He doesn't have the sense that once it is in my hand, it is mine. He says, it is yours, master, it is your water pot. He says, exactly, that is what I want to tell you. Now, these people who are scolding you, or cursing me for that matter, if I don't accept it, then with whom does it remain? It still remains with them. They may be shouting at me and my mind may be registering but my ego doesn't accept, because I know the words that have come from his mouth are his, just as the kamandalu, even though it is in your hand, you don't associate it with your ego. So if your ego does not accept it, or if your ego is reduced so much that you don't bother, it doesn't bother you, because the words, they just don't hit you. They just remain with the person who has cursed you. So he says, if I don't accept it, just as your ego did not accept the fact that the kamandalu is yours, you said it is mine, Buddha says. Similarly, the person who is cursing you, if you don't accept it, the words, the curses and the scolding and the abuse that person has showered remains with him. So why are you so panicky? Why are you getting disturbed? So that is why Swamiji says the reaction flashes only if the idea of egoism is there. The ahankara will tell you how to react, how much to react. In fact, all our misery is because of our ego. We go on reacting to useless things. And that's why Buddha said, if you want to lose your peace of mind, you go on fighting with those people. But I am not going to react, because Buddha's ego was under the control of his buddhi. His buddhi was overpowering his sense of ego. So Swamiji says, this mixture of action and reaction, how you react to external situations, how you react to whatever comes in through your eyes, through your ears, through your nose, through your skin, how do you react to that? Because this whole reaction, according to Sankhya or according to yoga, is presented to a unchanging entity within you, which is known as Purusha. All the things that I explained just now is Prakriti. Prakriti is made of ego, Prakriti is made of our eyes, Prakriti is made up of the brain, everything that you see outside, which is always in a state of flux, always changing, always changing. All the thoughts, vibrations are keeping on tiring our mind. The more you react, that is why Swami Sri Ramakrishna used to say, now and then just go to some solitude. Already your mind is disturbed. Don't disturb it more by mixing with more people and creating more confusion. So now and then, if you want to practice yoga, you have to go into solitude. You have enough stuff in the brain, in the form of memory, past memories. First, you deal with it. Don't add new and new things to your memory so that you cannot handle it. So that is why this mixture of action and reaction is presented to the Purusha, who is the real soul. He is neutral. Our Purusha or Brahman, who is Atman, which is within, it sees this entire drama as a witness. It is a Sakshi. It sees the whole drama. When you watch a movie, there may be a lot of action, there may be a lot of violence. But you know that this is, after all, a movie. It is just a screen. The moment the movie is switched off, the TV is switched off, the whole movie ends. All that action, fighting, and everything, violence, everything is going to stop. It is just a creation. So also the Purusha is witnessing the whole drama of Prakriti. The organs, the indriyas, together with the manas, the reactive mind, the determinative faculty, that is buddhi, then ego, that is ahankara, they all are known as antahkarana. This is just to Swamiji is explaining what chitta is, because the sutra is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So what is this chitta? It is this antakarana. Antakarana means the internal instrument. Everybody has an antakarana. They are but various processes in the mind stuff called chitta. They are not chitta. When chitta is disturbed, this whole antakarana is causing all these problems. First, there is a reaction, action, then there is a reaction by your mind, depending on your ego, depending on your buddhi, depending on your wisdom, depending on your reactive capacity. Everything is antakarana. They are like the waves in the chitta. So it is like a lake. When it is calm, it is peaceful. When you start throwing stones, it is disturbed. So antakarana is the one. These are the processes in the mind stuff. They are like waves in the ocean or waves in the lake. They are known as chitta. The waves of thought in the chitta are called vrittis. So this is how Swamiji says vritti nirodha means stop the waves. Chitta vritti nirodha. So very simple. Yoga means only this and only this, nothing else. All other things that go by the name of yoga. There was a big yoga festival. Our Sarvasthananda comes every year to attend a yoga festival conducted on the bank of Henley on Thames. Every year he was telling me the new yoga is introduced. Hot yoga, hanging yoga, goat yoga. There are so many yogas. Goat goes all over your body and they also call it yoga. So this yoga festival is full of crazy ideas which go by the name of yoga. So here, if you see Patanjali's definition is very simple. And this is the only definition of yoga, chitta vritti nirodha. Now, with all the yoga festivals in the world you may have, but does it lead to chitta vritti nirodha? Because if it doesn't satisfy the main function of yoga, then you have no right to call it yoga. You give it some other name. There are hundreds of names. You choose. Why spoil a wonderful name this which has been defined by Patanjali? It is Patanjali who has defined this name, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which is yoga. If it doesn't happen, whatever method you may use goats. I'm not saying goat yoga is, I don't know what it is, but there are so many yogas in the yoga festival. If anything, any of those yogas lead to Chitta Vritti Nirodha, I'm not criticizing them, but if it leads to Chitta Vritti Nirodha, then it is yoga. If it leads to anything else, even good health, it is not yoga. This has to be made very clear. That is why Swamiji is taking so much of pains to explain one sutra, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. It is not as simple. First he explains what chitta is, what vritti is, and why it should be stopped. That will come later. So the chitta vrittis, that is like a whirlpool. There is a big pool. You keep on throwing stones in that, and there are these waves. So these waves of thought, if they are stopped by some process, by whatever technique you apply, if that is done, then it is known as yoga. So that is the second sutra. Now we will come to the third sutra. Now before that, Swamiji says, before we understand what this vritti is. Vritti is translated as waves of thought. So what are these thoughts? Swamiji gives a very, very scientific definition. He says thought is a force, or it is prana, some prana, just as gravitation or electricity is. So you see, here he is discussing yoga on a very purely scientific basis. Thought is just a force. What is this force? The example that I gave, we throw a stone. There is a placid lake which is calm and there are no waves in that. The moment you throw a stone, a wave is formed, a whirlpool is formed, or a vritti is formed. So it is a force. All agree with this idea. Anything that you disturb, even they say sound is also a vibration. It requires ahata sound and anahata sound. That is what is described in Vedanta. Ahata means when two objects strike, there is sound because there is a vibration. Anything, even two atoms strike each other, they have this at the microcosmic level, at the quantum level, there is a quantum sound. Any two objects striking each other produces a sound. So it is a force like gravitation or any other force, electricity. So, from the infinite force of knowledge, that's why I said if you have not refer to the talks on prana that I gave. Some people wanted to start the sutras immediately, but Swamiji himself has dedicated one whole chapter to this idea of prana. And I said Ashokanandji wrote 3 articles uh, saying that how vibrations play such an important part in our life. Our body is full of vibrations. Everybody knows all the materials of our body. They are vibrating at a tremendous speed. If you see at the atomic or the molecular level, they are full of vibrations. Then our minds are full of vibrations, thought vibrations, subtle vibrations. They are impacting others, they are impacting us, they are impacting our bodies. Our depressions are impacting us. Why do they affect our body? Because subtle vibrations affect the gross vibrations. So, Swamiji says, from the infinite storehouse of force in nature, when you pray, what happens? There is an infinite prana embodied by your Ishta Devata or your Shakti. We call it Shakti. Shakti is nothing but force. Shakti means force. So when you pray, what happens? You align your little storage of force that you have with that infinite, vast ocean of force. Because depending on the object, depending on the person, depending on the deity, it is made of different forces, different Shaktis. Our bija, that is also a sound. Our mantra, that is also a sound. Whatever words we speak, they are also sound. You speak something which a person doesn't like, and immediately it is like a force. It is just making him just jump up and come and fight with you. So it is just like gravitation and electricity and other sound and other things. Thought is a force. So you have to use it wisely. Now, what happens? Why chitta vritti nirodha? Vritti is thought, and why chitta is a separate word. He says the instrument called chitta takes hold of some of these vibrations. See, if it takes hold of all the vibrations, we'll simply go mad because the chitta will be exposed. It is already exposed. Our minds, because they are strong, because we have developed our chitta so much that we take only the thoughts that I like. I read what I like, I meditate on whatever I like. Nobody can force. That is why Swamiji says independence is joy, dependence is misery, because you are depending on so many vibrations, so many things. But if you are independent, then the instrument, that is chitta, the definition is chitta vritti nirodha. So chitta is the instrument, which antakarana is the mind stuff. Chitta is the mind stuff, antakarana is the changes that are taking place because of reactions and actions. They take hold of some of these vibrations. See, this is important. We have to understand. We can choose how much of the external vibrations can be allowed to impact us. Now that is important. To prevent that, we do all spiritual practices. We do japa so that no matter how many vibrations come, the power of the Ishta, power of the mantra, power of the deity on whom you are meditating, they have more capacity than us. That is why we pray. They can absorb much more than what we can. So we are using them. I'm talking in a scientific way. We are using them as shock absorbers. So they are somewhere deep within us. We keep on meditating on them, saying their mantra. They sit there, and all the vibrations which would have disturbed us, we just pass it on to them because they have infinite capacity. Like they say, when nuclear vibrations, when the atomic material, it is so dangerous if you leave it outside. You have to take it, dig it deep somewhere, and then seal it so that the radioactive substance doesn't disturb others. So when we are so careful about these vibrations, just imagine our day-to-day life, hundreds of vibrations are attacking us. So do we not need some kind of shock absorber? This is a very crude way of putting it, but actually that is what our Shakti, whom we worship, the mantra that we utter, and the Ishta who is sitting within. Why do we imagine him to be within? Because our center of our consciousness is that which is absorbing all these random thoughts, the different thoughts which come as vibrations. They are impacting us. Some of the vibrations will just uh, drive away from, I mean, we will lose our moorings if there is no strong shock absorber. So the chitta takes hold of some. See, this is very important. He said, depending on how you have trained your chitta, your mind stuff, how you have trained it through spiritual practices, through upasana, it will take some of them, selected vibrations, and then send it out as thought. So it is like, even if somebody throws many things at you, you don't accept it. As Buddha said, you don't have to accept every word everyone says and take it seriously and get agitated. You select. The chitta has the capacity to absorb only those thoughts which it thinks is good for it. So that is why it sends it out as positive thought. The force, now who is supplying us the force? How the force that is coming from outside, how is it coming? It is coming through food, physically. So that is why they say you have to be careful of the food that you eat. Then it comes, he says, for physical activity, for physical reaction, if you eat nourishes food, you can act in a proper way. Even for good spiritual practices, they say good health is necessary. Why? Because that force, physical force also is important. Though it is less important than the mind, but still, physical force helps you to have developed the power of motion, to develop the power of reaction, and other finer forces. The physical forces that we throw out, they are because of the food that we eat. Ahara, it is known as whatever we eat is ahara. So the other food that comes, the sights that we see, the sounds that we hear, the images that are constantly bombarded on our consciousness. So we have to deal with it. In fact, we have to deal with it. There is no other way. The only way is, if you want a peaceful life, at least to prevent the already turbulent mind, if you want to control it, the only way is don't allow too much of external stimulus on that. So that is why most of the spiritual practices, they insist on solitude. At least you are not adding further trouble. You are not making your mind more turbulent. These fine forces, thought vibrations, gross vibrations like sound, like curses, abuses, words which you don't like, all these things, they are constantly, uh, it's like continuously throwing stones in a placid lake or pool, and they are creating more and more turbulence on the surface, and then you say our minds are disturbed. So the reaction is also important. Now, some people have the capacity to observe all this turbulence, no matter how many vibrations are there. But till you reach that stage, every young aspirant is advised to practice or go to solitude now and then. Why do we like solitude? We like solitude because in a already troubled mind, we are not adding further trouble, further images, further sounds, so many things which already the mind is troubled. So when you go to solitude, at least you can deal with the already existing problems, the turbulence that is already there without adding fresh turbulence. So that is why when you socialize, when you uh, add many more things, so many things may happen. Somebody may curse you, somebody may abuse you, somebody may say something, and then that disturbs our mind, already disturbed mind. So that is why it says the forces gross or subtle. When I say gross forces, I mean the five senses: sound, smell, taste, touch. So many so many things are being bombarded in our on our mind. Our consciousness is absorbing all those things. So these are gross forces. Then Swamiji says, Patanjali says in his yoga, that there are subtle forces in the way of in the they come as thoughts. Thought waves also travel. Thought is considered to be a force. It is an aspect of prana. Prana means force. If it is gross, it is the gross actions. If it is subtle, they are thoughts. So intense thoughts of hatred, intense thoughts of peace, goodness, they do impact. Thoughts will impact us just as heat impacts. As I said, everything that uh, you see in the world outside you is made of vibrations. If you see at a microcosmic level, every atom, everything is vibrating and giving every material its unique character. If it vibrates in a particular way, it is one particular metal. If it vibrates in another way, it is a plant or something else. So every atom or molecule of our body is full of internal vibrations, and the vibrations determine the uniqueness. It characterizes the material that we see. So, gross things we understand. We understand the impact of gross things, impact of food, impact of good food, bad food on our body, because they are observable by our senses. But we do not understand, we can just feel the impact of bad thoughts. There are certain places, that's why we have these places of pilgrimage. Why do we go? Because we catch the good vibrations, and meditation is nothing but inducing our own turbulent minds to catch good vibrations, peaceful vibrations, if they are there somewhere, or at least avoid the disturbing vibrations, disturbing thoughts. So, in that process, our mind, the second sutra, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, can be, can be practiced. It is not so easy to control the mind. That is what Patanjali seems to be saying. It is like a whirlpool, it is like a placid lake, but the lake does not remain placid for long. People are constantly throwing stones. We ourselves are throwing stones. Throwing stones means the input that we have, and the lake of the mind is getting disturbed now and then. And to that, we add more and more. We occupy ourselves with so many interactions, every thought, every image that we see, every sound that we hear. So it takes a lifetime to just steady this mind stuff. That is why he says this whirlpool doesn't allow us. It's so turbulent that we cannot see the bottom of the lake. For that, you have to just allow it to settle down, allow it to calm down. So, the instrument called chitta, the definition is yoga. That is the only definition of yoga. Yoga doesn't mean anything else. It means chitta vritti nirodha. By some process, whether you do it asana, whether you do pranayama, all the whole goal of yoga should be to make the mind steady, make the mind calm, so that there are chitta vritti. Vritti means thought waves are not produced. If too many thought waves are produced, it leads to turbulence of the mind, it leads to agitation, it leads to anxiety, it leads to worry. We are not able to control our minds. So, but you have to see the forces. Just as you are so careful, certain food doesn't suit us. It not only does not suit our body, it disturbs our mind. So they're all connected. So finer forces, thoughts, apparently they come from our minds, but the mind, the food for the mind can be gross, can be subtle, can be even at the causal level, at the samskara level where past impressions are stored. We call it causal because they are not seen. Even subtle thoughts can be seen. We come to know when the thoughts are there in our mind. But our memories, old memories, unconscious memories, they are so deeply embedded in our consciousness that they are not often seen. That is why we call it Karana Sharira. So one is Sthula, gross, Sukshma, thoughts, or the other reactions of the mind, which we can observe. We can observe when we are angry, we can observe when we are peaceful. But there is the third type of existence within ourselves, which is known as Karana Sharira. It's from nowhere, you'll find from deep within the unconscious these subtle impressions of so many past memories which we have just pushed down into the unconscious. They come and disturb us even when there is no apparently we are not disturbed by anyone. We are sitting in a very calm and quiet place. There's no external stimulus, and then still we wonder where are these thoughts coming from. They are coming from they are the part of our causal existence. It is known as karana. Causal means there is a cause, but it is deep rooted. It is embedded in our subconscious mind. So we have to see that this chitta vritti nirodha is a very complex process. Yoga is not so easy. So we have to understand this yoga, which in the second sutra, he says, yoga chitta vritti nirodha, that how to control the mind and allow the soul to see its to observe its real nature, which is full of peace, full of joy, full of bliss, is what yoga aims. That is the ultimate goal. So if there are some questions you can ask. I think we are running short of time. We'll have some time for some questions.
Maharaj, any
Yes.
guidance on any guidance
Guidance?
on like this Nirodha is
Nirodha means
such a
control. Yes, yes.
difficult thing. So we don't live in a quiet environment. We are always surrounded by noise. So what are
No,
those
no.
tips to
We choose.
actually?
Yeah, I agree with you. We are, most of the time we are surrounded with noise, but given the choice, do we always prefer to go away from the noise, or do we see, the thing is you have to exert your will. If you want to be in a noisy place, then who can stop you? Or if you want to be away, we get enough opportunities for solitude. We're not working for 24 hours. At least nobody works for unless he's a crazy person. So some kind of solitude you have to find in the midst of our busy routine. That is the whole essence. Why are these quiet places? Most of the spiritual places are very quiet.
Okay.
But unfortunately, you see, the places of worship sometimes can be very noisy. That is why we have to put notices everywhere. Please maintain silence. This is a practicing monastery. So if people come here and then socialize, then the very purpose of these monasteries and places of worship, even if you go to a church or a Buddhist monastery or any place of worship, if it doesn't allow you some kind of solitude, some kind of peace, then it is not serving its true purpose. So there are places we have to seek. Even in within your house you can seek. You go to a corner, fix a certain these are practical things which we can do. You tell, I'm not entertaining guests during this period. I just don't. Just refuse to meet. Maybe they'll call you unsocial, but doesn't matter. If you want, then you should not compromise. There are people. So in the beginning they'll say, "Oh, this person is very unsocial." Well, it's okay. That is their opinion. But if one wants to practice yoga, if one wants peace of mind, then one has to set one's priorities. What is our priority? That is important. So there is
Understand.
enough chance, enough. I mean, we have enough uh, opportunities throughout our whole day, where we can try to focus on yoga. Yoga means controlling the mind. And that's
Got
the
it.
only way to peace. Yeah, yeah.
Got it.
So there is no
Thank you much.
shortcut. You see, the problem is everybody wants to be busy and then they want a shortcut which will suddenly make their minds calm, quiet, and all those things. But Patanjali will tell us in the next few sutras, it is a long process which involves lot of patience, perseverance. So yoga is not so easy.
You got
That's
it,
why,
Maharaj. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Understand. So you have to
Fix our
any
priorities. It's just
yeah.
a question of fixing our priorities. Whether we want to be quiet, whether
Got
we
it.
really want yoga, then we will find some way. We will find.
Okay. Any other questions anybody has?
Yeah, Maharaj, just one
Yes.
question. Uh, how to harmonize Upasana meditation, which is Japa
Uh,
Mantra and Chittavritti Nirodha,
with harmonize with what?
with Chittavritti Nirodha,
With
with the second sutra which you were discussing, Maharaj.
oh, the whole upasana, any kind of spiritual practice, if you observe carefully, is nothing but the second sutra only.
Mm-hmm.
It helps. It helps to calm down the mind. You have to use different techniques.
Mm-hmm.
This is one technique which is easily understood. Repetition of a name, holy name. In the Christian tradition, it is known as the prayer of the heart. So
Mm-hmm.
the Russian Orthodox people, they used to carry some kind of, they used to use beads made of thread. Knots of the thread were used as beads, and they had a long rosary, and they used to walk and sit and just repeat a prayer of what they called as the prayer of the heart. They would just say, "Oh Lord Jesus, have mercy upon me." Now people wondered why repeat the same prayer hundreds and hundreds of times. So let us have some variety. Let us read some books, but that does not serve the purpose. The real efficacy of this prayer of the heart, as they say,
Yeah.
is repetition, because you are preventing other thoughts from coming, and the only way to prevent is to stick to one thought. What do you do when you are in solitude? You just want the mind to be calm. You don't want different thoughts to come and disturb you.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the thoughts are negative. The thoughts of anxiety, thoughts of, or the other way Patanjali says, have a counter thought. If you are full of fear, maybe induce your mind by having positive or creative thoughts which remove that fear. Counter, they call it pratipaksha bhavana. Just give the opposite thought so it cancels out. That is another way.
Mm-hmm.
Each thought you deal at a time and try to counter it with a positive thought. But that is a very laborious process. The easier process is the process of prayer. Prayer means holding on to one constant thought, one constant Ishta. Ishta means your preferred deity, whether it is Buddha, Christ, Krishna, any. That's why Hinduism says you can choose anything. But stick to one. That is the idea. Don't keep on changing your prayer and your japa and sadhana. So holding on to one thought, will it not result in yoga chitta vritti nirodha? So it is exactly the second sutra in practice,
Okay.
all the upasana. Huh? In
Okay.
fact, your upasana is, or the sadhana that you are doing, is meant for the second sutra.
Ji Maharaj. Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Swami, I'd like to ask a question, please.
Yes.
Swami, you spoke about Purusha being neutral, and
About, about, about.
about Purusha being a state of neutral, a neutral state. So my question is,
Purusha.
Purusha,
Purusha.
Purusha. Okay, Purusha. Okay, fine.
Sorry,
I
Swami.
understood. Yeah, yes. Yeah.
And the Atman, Brahman, is ultimate bliss, ultimate love, who we really are.
Yes.
But can I just ask, when we are doing our sadhana and our practice, when we feel and this happens, I believe, to many of us.
Mm.
We're in a state of neutrality. We're just
Yeah,
looking at
yes.
the world, and we're not feeling much at
Positive
all.
or negative, yeah, yeah, there are no I mean, you don't take sides, you just feel some kind of neutrality comes when you're doing sadhana. Yes, that is exactly the goal, but it should persist. I mean, why do we hold on to a neutral person in the sense, when you say God is eternal, that means he is neutral, he is neither good nor bad, he is completely neutral, he is eternal. When you say eternal, it means it is not changing. So, Purusha, according to yoga, and the whole nature, according to our material ideas, is always changing. And change presupposes, I mean, whenever there is change, there is misery. That is what Buddhism says. Buddhism says all the misery that you suffer is because you are holding on to the impermanent things. They come and they go. So, holding on to God or holding on to Brahman or holding on to whatever name you may give, the Father in heaven or Allah or any other concept of eternal, unchanging reality will help you to do that. So now your question is, now and then we feel a touch of that eternal. That is very good. It should happen when we are doing our sadhana. Sometimes we feel very happy because we just withdraw our mind from all the turmoil or all the turbulence of the world when we are meditating, and we get a glimpse of the soul or Atman or Brahman. The names are different, but reality is the same. So that neutral reality or that eternal reality, it would not be right to call it neutral. It is eternal. So there is no bias there. Whereas nature is always biased. It is either good or bad or happy or unhappy. So changes always presuppose that this lack of neutrality. So you feel partial. Nature is partial. They are sometimes supporting. Nature doesn't react to the evil that is in society. There are people getting away with all the evil that they do, and there are good people who suffer. So you think that Prakriti or nature is not neutral, it is partial. It is partial to some. That idea we get because we are holding on to this changing reality. If you hold on to the changeless reality or the eternal reality, and even if you get a glimpse when you are meditating, you just hold on to it and just hope that it becomes more and more frequent. See, when you do meditation, if you uh, go to that state, it is fine. But if it comes by itself when you are meditating, just enjoy that moment, but it will not stay for long. Again, turbulence will come. So that is the whole of yoga, again and again, going back and holding on to the eternal.
Yes,
Yeah.
Swami, thank
Okay.
you. But could I just ask you one other thing, please?
Yeah. Yeah.
The when we get glimpses of the Atman, that's beautiful, and love. It feels like love for all. But what I meant by this state of neutrality is
Mhm.
that it's not just in a meditative state; it's in
Mhm.
living day to day.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah,
And
it's a very desirable thing. Yes. Yes.
and is that a precursor to becoming more one with who we really are? It's a
Yes. Yes.
good,
It's a precursor. Yeah.
good.
The thing is degree and also in duration. It should be a state which is more and more frequent and more permanent in our life. Then we are progressing in the right direction. Yes.
Thank you, Swami.
Okay.
Pranam Maharaj, Ratna here. Can I ask you a question, please?
Yes.
The question is, sorry, please forgive me for asking this, but it has been in my mind. How do we know whatever we are perceiving, if it is a light, or a sense of something vastness, that it is not an altered sense of consciousness and not biological and is spiritual. Sorry, this has been
Yeah,
in
no,
my
no.
mind,
It
so
is
I
a
thought I'll
genuine,
ask you.
legitimate question. So many of the spiritual experiences, they can be hallucinations. In fact, most of them are. When some people, with some temporary euphoria, it can be induced by drugs also. So you can make out whether they are genuine or not, because the transformation that takes place, that peacefulness that you develop as a result of spiritual practices and upasana the hard way, means you have to work hard for that. That is totally different than these drug induced or maybe some freak hallucination, which will give you a sense of euphoria and some kind of peace. Why do you think people take drugs? They want to induce this state, they don't want to work hard. So that is why they are not. Uh, finally, the effect is very bad because they always will be depending on these things. There are so many drugs, people have experimented with that. There are herbs, there's some practitioners, based on certain herbs which they get, which are legal, which is not illegal. And they say when they consume that, they reach an altered state of consciousness, which may be temporary, but ultimately they will harm the person because it is a biological. You can't control or you can reach that state by these gross methods. They are always going to be temporary. The effect of the drug goes and then they are back to their normal selves. There is no change, no transformation in the deeper levels of consciousness. So it's a temporary surface. It's on the surface because its impact is on the body and the nervous system, which is very gross. And that impact, as long as the effect of that particular herb or whatever it is, you call it drug or you call it by some other name, and that will not last long. And in fact, it will make you addicted to that. So artificially, we cannot create peace. That is something you have to remember. And the difference you will feel by by the transformation that takes place. You see, these people become miserable. Those who take these, maybe at that altered level of consciousness, they are very happy. But suddenly they will go into the depths of misery. And again, they'll be searching for some kind of stimulus, external stimulus to make them go back to that state. They become addicted. Whereas a person who works hard and practices yoga, definitely it doesn't have the same effect. He becomes more and more peaceful in a very much more natural way because he doesn't need any external support. He's using his own mind to make himself happy. Okay?
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you. That was really very useful. Thank you. And sorry to have bothered you. Thank you.
No, it's nothing wrong. You should ask questions. That's why we have this question answer session. Now, there's so many misunderstandings. That is a problem. That is why we have to go to these authentic books. The reason why we have to go and refer to the authentic books is because they will not misguide us. But if you read any Tom, Dick, and Harry who has written on yoga without an authentic tradition behind him, then you have to take it with a pinch of salt. It may lead you astray. It can shatter your life. Yeah, in many cases. Yeah, there's some. You wanted to ask? No, you said.
Yes. Initially, you mentioned about breathing.
About breathing.
Breathing, right?
Yes.
Should be consistent.
Mm.
How can breathing should be consistent and help us to practice chitta vritti and nirodha?
Yeah, it is one of the preliminary steps, but we should not get stuck to that. There are two ways of regulating our breathing. One is through pranayama, induced pranayama, which needs some supervision by experts, which is very difficult. That is why we discourage. The other way of regulating prana is through repetition of the mantra. It induces automatically it induces any repeated practice, any repetition of a holy name or a holy prayer in a very systematic, in a rhythmic way. You'll see it impacts your breath. It impacts the whole prana becomes synchronized. It becomes harmonious automatically. So that is a higher way of inducing pranayama than practicing it. Though some people whose minds are very, very gross, who then for them breathing techniques may help. But the simplest rule, according to Swamiji, there are many complex pranayama techniques which have developed in the yoga system, which are extremely dangerous because unless there is somebody to guide you. So what they suggest is just take deep breath. The only pranayama that Swami Vivekananda has advocated in Raj Yoga, which is safe, you can do without any help or without any guru, is just breathe in. Say you breathe in for 10 seconds, you breathe out for 10 seconds. Breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds. So, and don't restrain or don't retain the breath inside. That is the only rule which you can do under expert guidance. Kumbhaka, that is breathing in, holding the breath inside in the lungs, that can be dangerous if it is not practiced properly. So best is regular deep breathing. There's nothing wrong. If you don't have a mantra or if you don't have, but repeating the mantra in a very, very rhythmic way, smooth way, you will see your breath also follows the thought process. That is why this repetition of mantra is advocated. Repetition of prayer also achieves the same objective.
We have one online question.
Yeah.
Rajiv asks why process of worship is noisy. He asks, can he talk?
Yeah.
Shall I ask him to
No, just read what he has typed.
Why process of worship is noisy?
No, we make it noisy. Process of worship is never noisy. The question is why process of worship? Because unfortunately we have seen only those processes, especially in the Hindu tradition. There are certain other traditions where worship is very quiet. So I am not of the opinion that worship has to be noisy. It's never noisy. In fact, worship is an internal thing where the worshipper and the worshipped God have to be in communion. So it cannot be noisy. If it is noisy, then it is not worship. It is some kind of ritual which we do. It is an external form of worship, maybe for very, very, very gross people who cannot even sit for 5 minutes. For them, at least some noise can control them and make them sit. For them, worship can be noisy because they will be more noisy. They'll perhaps go and go to some and do some dancing and other things to at least control them. They will be at least sitting in the name of some gross worship, listening to the mantras without even understanding it, and remain rooted to some spot, listening to this, what you term as noisy worship. It should not be noisy, but at least they will replace the other noise that they are accustomed to a better noise of the rituals. So that is why in Hinduism, for the masses, we advocate this kind of puja and ritualistic worship because our forefathers knew that these people they already have a lot of noise in their life. So this noise, if not even, it will not make them meditative, but it will make them less restless. So everything has a purpose. So it is a purpose. Don't criticize. We should not criticize that our worship is noisy. It is useful for a certain category of people. It will make them less noisy. Yes, that's why we have these choruses in churches. You see chorus singing. Why do they do it? There is obviously, but it's a harmonious noise. It's a harmonious music, which will help, in fact, all the people who are sitting in the churches or in the prayers. They are often uttered loudly because our minds are so gross. It has to stop the noise already there in our lives. So in a way, this ritualistic noise or noisy worship will help us at some stage of our life to do manasik puja. That is why in the Puranas they say the lowest form of worship is ritualistic worship. A higher form of worship is manasik puja, that is mental worship. But since we can't do it, at least the ritualistic worship is fine. I think I've answered your question satisfactorily. Yeah. We'll conclude. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.